Okay.
All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our very first episode of Brainstorm. Brainstorm is going to be our series of mental health related videos that will be hosted mostly by myself. My name's Tyler Tatton. I'm one of the mental health support peers for SUU and Counseling and Psychological Services. And this is Chelsea.
Yep. Hey, everybody. I'm Chelsea. And do you want to say your pronouns? We're going to do that
Yes.
in a minute.
Yeah. My pronouns are he, him, his.
Yep. And I'm Chelsea Gambles. I'm a counselor at SUU CAPS, and my pronouns are she, her, hers. And this channel is meant to be a resource to anyone who wants to learn about how to improve their own mental wellness, and just basically anyone who's interested in mental health. And if this is your first time watching this video, which it should be because this is our first video, welcome. And we hope to do several more in the future featuring different topics around mental health. And today we're excited to kind of just introduce the channel and introduce CAPS and our resources, and just maybe a tiny bit about the peer program and kind of what we're hoping to do all around. I don't know, what else?
Yeah, these videos we're hoping are going to be almost like podcast type format where we're just trying to keep it short. We're just having a conversation about these topics. Some of them will be a little bit more fact-based, like this one where we're going to be talking mostly about the resources available through CAPS at SUU. But a lot of the other ones, it may just be way more open conversation. We're also planning on having quite a few guest speakers, mostly counselors at SUU CAPS at the moment, but we're hoping to branch out eventually as well. But before we get started, we do want to mention that any opinions that are shared in any of our videos are not the stance taken, not necessarily the stance taken by SU Counseling and Psychological Services. It is purely the opinion of the individual. We also want to say that if these videos do not take place of any counseling services, therapy, and if you are in crisis, we're going to leave some links and some resources in the description and stuff below. So use those. This is not a placeholder for therapy by any means.
Yes, thank you for that. So essentially, make sure you're still doing accessing the resources that you have. Make sure you're following the guidance of a counselor if you're seeing them. This doesn't cover that. We are just here to offer additional resources and insights about mental health. And I think it's going to be fun. It's going to be cool because we're going to have different counselors. All the counselors at CAPS have their own areas of interest and expertise. They're all really incredible counselors. I'm lucky to get to work with them. And then we get to also get the insight and wisdom of various peers. Tyler, our very first and esteemed peer, is here, and this is kind of his project, and I don't know, his wisdom is what got us going here. And I've learned a lot from Tyler. I got to work with him last year too. We've done some cool projects, right, Tyler?
Yeah, thanks, Chelsea. I've learned a lot from you too. It's been great to work on this project, and it's nice to see it's actually starting.
Yes.
But
we're not very technically minded.
And we're not natural actors, so this may be super awkward to watch. I don't know. I hope not. I hope we're pretty fun people, I think, in person. I don't know about when we're talking to people we're not actually seeing, but we hope this is good. We hope you have an enjoyable time watching these videos and that you learn something, especially where we're talking about these resources, that you're able to find out maybe a resource you didn't know was available to you and that you can make use of it.
Yes. And if it is awkward, it kind of does highlight just the experience of being on Zoom, right? Because it's a little different, and hopefully someday we'll be in person again. Until then, we'll just muddle through this whole Zoom world, right? So maybe I will, do you think I should screen share right now and just head over to the website?
Yeah, let's do that.
All right, so I'm going to screen share with you, which it's like a rule of nature that when you're trying to screen share, you can't find the thing that you need. So here we go. Let's see if I can figure this out. Yeah, I can't find it. Let me go make sure it's up. I have it up on Safari. Okay, one more time. There it is. So the cool thing is, echoed. Sorry. You can just literally go to Google and type in SUU CAPS, or from the SUU website, you can just put in CAPS, stands for Counseling and Psychological Services, and that will take you to our website. CAPS is, you want to talk about a little bit about what you've learned about CAPS since you spent a fair amount of time there, Tyler?
Yeah, so CAPS, it for SUU is our very own counseling and psychological services. Their building's just barely off campus, right across from the SUMA, Southern Utah Museum of Art. Right now, they're mostly doing everything over Zoom, but usually they're just across the street from SUMA. But they are an amazing team of professionally trained, licensed counselors and therapists. We have amazing staff there, but they are there specifically to help SUU students. And so part of your student fees actually goes towards paying for you to have these services available to you. So you don't actually, when you utilize CAPS resources, you don't actually have to pay for the majority of those at that time. It's just covered in your fees. So this is a fee, this is a service you're already paying for that is just available to you. So it's great to use it.
Perfect. Agreed. You already paid for it. So I'm glad you highlighted that. So it's, I think, a great resource. I never knew anything. I went to the University of Utah. I never even knew, and Utah State, never even knew that it was something that I could do. And I really regret that because I think it's a really great resource. So, let me navigate back to this. So this is the main page that you'll come to, and we're going to first discuss just basically how to get started, how to get access to the resources that CAPS offer. It is a little easier when we're in person. Right now, if you went to the door, there'd be a sign that would explain all this, but we prefer that you access the resources via the phone and online. So if you go to the website, it explains all of this, but we're going to outline it for you a little bit, how to get started. So to make an appointment, step one, pretty easy, just make a phone call. We have the best front desk staff ever. We did just lose one of our front desk workers. Her name was Amanda Healy. She was great, but we just hired a new one. I won't say her name because I don't know if she's like formally hired yet, but I think she is. But anyway, Debbie is our main front desk administrator, and she is most likely to answer the phone when you call. She is really nice, really easy to talk to. Just say that you need to fill out a request for counseling. It's a pretty quick and easy process. In the request, there's just some basic forms that you fill out, a little bit about yourself, your age, where you grew up, things like that. Different identifiers, demographics. There's a rights and responsibilities document that sort of explains what you get in terms of your commitment or the contract and what's expected from you. I always, as a counselor, I have it right here because I've been doing counseling all day. It's laminated. I always review it with you as well. And we always try to highlight the main expectations, but you'll sign that. And right now you'll also sign a teleconsent, which has you fill out 2 emergency contacts just in case of a disconnection via the internet, so that we can contact someone if we can't get a hold of you. So she'll explain the process of how to get you access to those documents on the phone, and then you'll fill that out. Then on the phone with her, she'll explain sort of the intake process, but basically every Thursday we meet as counselors, and you're assigned, we assign as many individuals on the waiting list or on the list as we can based on the openings that the counselors have. So sometimes that's everyone on the list, and sometimes that's just as many as on the list as we can get down. So Debbie will give you, or whoever you speak to will give you kind of an idea, but basically you'll get assigned as soon as possible, and that is kind of varied. Sometimes it is within a week or two, and sometimes it can take up to a couple months. Weirdly, not weirdly, but there's kind of an influx that happens, and so sometimes it can depend on when you apply, meaning like if you go at the very beginning of the semester, it can mean that you get in right away, whereas if you go at the same time as a lot of people, which just kind of depends, it changes a little bit here and there, but it can mean that it can take some time. But basically what happens from there is she will contact you when you've been assigned a counselor, and she will make contact, the front desk will make contact with you and make an appointment right then and there on the phone with you. Excuse me. And then there are a few exceptions to that. We do have a screening process where if there's any identifiers that you filled out on the paperwork that we feel like require you to have more of an immediate intervention, then we do what's called a crisis screening, where a counselor will make contact with you. And well, the front desk will make the appointment for you, but then you'll have a screening more immediately around some specific concerns. And if you've ever heard of someone having that, like maybe you're like, I had to wait, you know, we went in at the same time and I had to wait this much time, and then someone else maybe didn't have to wait as much time for that immediate contact. It's typically around the way certain markers or certain concerns related to safety. So there is some exceptions to that, but that's the general rule. I've been really pleased to say that since we've been doing remote, I think we've been able to get students in as quickly as possible, and it seems like our wait list hasn't been as long as it's been in years past. So that's maybe promising in that sense. I'm sure you've all heard that we've always had, or often have, a very long wait list. For our boss, Kurt Hill, who is the clinical director, or the director, and our clinical director, Deneen, are always doing everything they can to hire more counselors and do anything. We're always thinking of ways to chip away at that wait list. But anyway, that's basically what happens. She makes an appointment with you, and then while you're waiting, there's a number of resources that we have. And I won't talk about them right now because they're kind of covered when we talk about groups. Tyler and I are going to talk about all the different services that CAPS offer. But there is a number of other resources that you can access nearly immediately. So keep that in mind if it feels super daunting. So on this page, it also outlines the things that you can do while you wait. And then it also sort of overviews the types of counseling, the types of services that we offer. So yeah, that's that. And then I think we're going to talk to you now a little bit about the different types of resources that we offer.
Yes.
So maybe go to the groups page, but do you want to just kind of outline all the different types first, and then?
Yeah, for sure. While you're heading over to that groups page, I'll lay it out. So CAPS is awesome because it has a bunch of different options. The typical option that most people think of when they think about getting counseling is one-on-one, which there's that option at CAPS. It's used a lot and it's great. You get paired with a therapist that you meet with every so often, just you and them, and they're amazing, and they'll work with you on whatever it is that you want to work with them on. There's also a bunch of different groups. And so there's some different types of groups at CAPS. The first type that we'll talk about real quick is the open enrollment group and workshop. So we have two of those. Those are our dialectical behavior therapy workshop group and our mindful self-compassion group. And we're gonna have another video hopefully pretty soon where we really go into depth on what each of these groups does. But these groups are great because you can join at any time. And for the most part, you kind of do them or at least with the DBT, you do it as you want to. You're not required to be there at a certain time. It has drop-in hours, and this is Chelsea's group. she runs. But the Mindful Self-Compassion group, it's you can join anytime, but they do meet on a specific day each week. They are Thursdays, 12 to 12:50, and you usually want to do 3 consecutive weeks, and it's great. That's with our awesome therapist, Christina, right?
Yep.
Still writing that?
And she's going to be, we set the date for her. It's in towards the middle of February that she's going to come on with us. So
yeah,
it's awesome.
Yeah, so she'll be joining us soon. But other than those, we also have our therapy groups. They're a little bit more structured on when you can join, and you have to be there each week. Maybe if you want to explain that a little bit better, Chelsea.
Yeah, sure. So therapy groups, there's usually a specific goal or purpose that brings together a group of people. So they're either around a specific issue or struggle, or an intention or goal. So for example, and like Tyler mentioned, they're usually a set of like 6 weeks, 6 to 12 weeks, and they meet at a set time. So right now, the bereavement group, that is for people who are experiencing loss of a loved one. That one has not been filled, so we haven't set a time, but they come together and they specifically work and support each other around loss. Connections, this is a Brene Brown, it's her content, really awesome group ran by our clinical director. The time has been set. I believe there is still a few openings on this group. So if you're interested in working through shame and working towards vulnerability, most people know who Brene Brown is. If you don't, YouTuber, watch a little bit of her. She also has a Netflix series, Wednesday, 2 to 3:30. So this is a 12-week set that you meet each week, and you follow a workbook. So the general poetry group, so these next several, the next several groups, with the exception of the trauma group, these are process groups. They have slightly different formats, but the next several groups that I'll talk about are process groups. So the intention is to gain insight about yourself, understanding how you interact with other people. And that's the intention of these groups. So the general poetry group is, the poetry series is taught by Andrea Donovan, our clinical social worker. She is amazing. And they use poetry as sort of a tool for understanding yourself. And in a later set, in this one, they talk about trauma. They use it to process trauma. But again, this has a set time. They meet for 6 weeks, Thursdays, 3 to 4:30. The Open Women's Support Group, this was started by 2 mentors. So 2 students on campus saw a need for this, came to us. Myself and Andrea also co-facilitate this group. It's Tuesdays, 4 to 5 p.m. So this is for individuals who have survived violence. And there's a screening process to that, but if you're interested in that, you can contact the front desk. The trauma support group, same idea. They're using poetry as a way to process trauma. It's a 6 weeks set time. Understanding self and others, same idea. Processing with other members who are just wanting to get to know each other. Most of the time, the individuals don't know each other. These groups generally have 6 to sometimes 9 individuals that just get together to process. We usually have a couple of these. It looks like this one doesn't have a date yet because it hasn't been filled. And they tend to be very powerful for people and really exciting. So if you're just kind of wanting to get to know yourself and more and understand how you interact with others and maybe what areas you want to improve on around your interpersonal style, it's a great group. And then single poetry session therapy groups, it's just you're only obligated to meet one time, but it's the same idea. You're processing just with the intent to kind of understand yourself. Does that make sense? So these are more specific to a goal and intention, and they're time limited. Yeah,
thanks, Chelsea. And we also have a couple community support groups, like our LGBTQIA+ community. Is this a closed group? I don't remember, Chelsea.
I think anyone can, who identifies with the community can attend
Okay. Yeah.
in terms of
This-
like students, faculty, staff.
yeah. And it says so right there on the description. Should have just looked at it. But yeah, it's super cool. We got a couple. We were also looking for some other community support groups that we were going to be adding in soon. Haven't gotten to that yet. But other than the individual and group counseling options, there's also an option for couples counseling. We have some therapists that are very experienced in that and can do that. We also have, normally we'll have an option to do biofeedback. That's not an option right now because of COVID. I say that phrase way too often because of COVID. But what biofeedback is there's a machine that you'll get hooked up to that senses and monitors some of your vital signs, and it helps you to interact with a relaxation technique on a computer, and it shows how that relaxation technique is changing your stress levels as a way to show you like, hey, this is working. And it just helps you learn and train yourself to use those techniques when you are feeling stress, and so that you don't get as stressed in the future. And then there's also an option at CAPS for psychological assessments. And those are one of the few things that are not covered just by student fees. Those you do have to pay for. But there's a wide array of psychological assessments that you can have done at CAPS.
Yeah, and right now they're just doing learning disability and ADHD assessments because the rest kind of require you to be in person. So, and at CAPS, they're significantly less expensive than if you were to go get them in the community. So that's kind of cool. One thing I was going to say about biofeedback is while the lab is closed under services on our website, you can go to biofeedback here at the end. And there is some different meditations that you can access, and you can also check out. We have some CDs and things like that that are kind of a supplement to biofeedback that you can still practice. That's kind of cool, and can also help you kind of get prepared for hopefully someday doing the lab again. Just so So yeah, that kind of covers all of our resources, individual, like Kyler mentioned, one-on-one, groups, couples, psychological assessments, and biofeedback.
Yeah. So the couples counseling and the individual counseling, they, like Chelsea was saying earlier, they tend to take a lot longer to get into. The groups are usually way faster to get into. So those are a great option if you're just needing some support but can't get into individual counseling as quickly. But we also have this page that talks about other options while you wait for counseling. And one of the great ones that we've had for a long time, it's virtual now rather than in person, but Let's Talk. Do you want to talk about that?
Sure. It reminds me of, my mom used to call it Doc in a Box, where they just kind of, it was like, it used to be, we'd go to different sites on campus, the counselors would, and so you could just kind of pop in. But now it's virtual, so it's basically brief consultation with a counselor. The idea is to be sort of problem focused or solution focused. If you can think of one or two small problems that you'd like to just sort of have a listening ear or a bit of consultation around. Sometimes it can be about resource management. If you need a little help figuring out a bit of resource connection or networking, that can be a good use of Let's Talk as well. Like I said, it's 10 to 15 minutes drop in. This is the link. It's every Thursday, 3 to 5. So again, if you go to our website and go to While You Wait for Counseling, all this information is right there. Here's some topics that could be covered around this: stress, worry, shock, culture shock, COVID, anything under that umbrella, family problems, adjustment, And we haven't mentioned this yet, but we do have some spaces on campus where if you're just like popping in between classes and need to hop on to either do Let's Talk or to meet with your counselor, there's been a few spots that we've been able to get designated for counseling. So that's covered right here. And then also on our main page, there's a little blue heading that says if you need a space, and it explains the different spots that we have on counseling designated.
Yeah. I'm actually using one of them right now. We have a little confidential space in the Health and Wellness Center, which is located right next to the radio station in the Student Center. It's a great place to use for Let's Talk or meeting with your counselor because it's all over Zoom. Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah.
And then we already talked about how groups are a faster thing that you can get into as well. So next, I want to briefly talk about the mental health support peers. We're going to be covering them in depth, hopefully very soon in another video. So that's my job. I'm a mental health support peer. This year, there are 3 mental health support peers, myself, Karina Ney, and Victor Carvajal Lopez. All 3 of us are psychology majors that have been extensively trained by CAPS to work with students and be a support resource for students. We're not therapists. We can't do therapy with you, but we can lend knowledge of different stress management techniques. We do a lot of stuff with learning how to manage your schedule. We're really willing to talk about basically anything. We're not allowed to be confidential the same way that CAPS are. We do have to report anything to Title IX that is related to sexual abuse or discrimination. But we do try to keep things as confidential as possible. And we're just here to be a resource, a listening ear, give you some empathy, some validation. We know it's hard, and sometimes it's just nice to have someone to talk to. And so that's what we do. We also have some other projects we work on, like I've been working on getting these videos going, and also I've worked extensively on our next resource we want to talk about, the self-help toolkit.
Yeah. And really quickly, I just want to make a plug for the peers because they have been a great resource. I've seen the way that they've been able to help students in different ways than us as counselors have, and just in support of us. Like last year, working with individuals, for example, maybe there's a lot of stress around like financial stress. You can come to counseling and address, you know, the parts of that that impact your mental health and maybe the roots of some of that. But then something the peers have been able to do is like meet with the student and maybe work on the resume or work on a schedule for when you're going to apply for jobs, or just different resources. That's one example of a million, but
yeah. And
really
if we don't know how to help you with some specific thing that you're struggling with, there's a good chance we know somebody who can help you with it. And so we'll get you in contact with them. I did forget to mention, we are based out of the Health and Wellness Center. So usually one of us is around. If one of us isn't in the Health and Wellness Center, the staff in the Health and Wellness Center will know how to get you in touch with us, and we'll get back with you as quick as we possibly can. So
yeah, so they're an awesome resource. Drop in there, access that.
Yep. So this next resource, the Mental Health Toolkit, this one is going to be an ever expanding resource. We have some great resources in it already, but it's going to keep continuing to grow. If you want to show how to get that.
So you could obviously access it from here, or you can also on this sidebar through the student resources, through the Mental Health Toolkit.
Yeah. So there's all these different things that are commonly an issue for students in college. And so what this is designed to be is you can come to this toolkit and look at whatever it is that you're dealing with, click on the tab, and it'll have just a ton of different resources for you. We're hoping to have a bunch of articles, some videos, TED Talks. Our videos are going to be in here under the podcast tab, which will most likely be renamed to videos, but just have a ton of options that you can look at yourself without the need of being with a counselor, so that you can start working on whatever it is that is causing you stress by yourself.
Yes. So here's like, I just clicked on depression, and it's just an example of different resources that you can link yourself to.
Yep.
So yeah, there's that.
And then the last thing we had was our COVID survival guide. And this is just a list of tons of resources of getting you through COVID. It includes community resources, resources at SUU. It's quite extensive. You want to talk about that for a sec, Chelsea?
Yeah, so we created this in conjunction with the peers. This is a project as well. So here's like a table of contents, but it's basically your survival guide as a student through all the different facets of how your life might have been impacted, or it may still be impacted through experiencing COVID, and the different ways that it has intersected with students' lives. So we start out with some skills for navigating and responding to COVID. So we just put a few different types of coping mechanisms and explain a few different types of, they're based in ACT and DBT and CBT. So, what did I just do? Some of those skills that we talk about in some of our groups. So yeah, we cover, it is, like Tyler said, very extensive. These are all just different types of coping skills, all these different pages. From there, we go to, we talk a little bit about the cultural impacts for those that have experienced racism and different types of marginalization. Then we talk about just the various ways, speaking of marginalization, some individuals who have been impacted who are quarantining in unsupportive or unsafe environments, just the different intersections for people. Then we talk specifically about CAPS and our services and how we can help. Now you're well versed on that. Then we link you to a number of online resources specifically for coping with quarantine and COVID. Then we talk about what resources related to if your employment has been impacted. Then we outline specifically the community resources. So we cover like the food pantries, the different shelters, other mental health resources, healthcare facilities that you may need to access. And then we round it out with SUU specific resources. And these have been updated. This might not be the most updated. We probably need to look at that, but we have been updating them each semester, just the different departments on campus and how maybe their service delivery has changed based on COVID and how to best access them. So it's a good resource to have.
Yeah, it's super cool. And Chelsea did a lot of the work on that.
I did a lot of it, and so did peers. It's a really great resource.
Yeah.
So there's a lot you can do while you wait.
Yep, that's lots of options for while you're waiting. Last thing we wanted to cover just very briefly, there are also some resources for faculty who may be assisting students. We know it's common for students to come to a professor and say, hey, I'm dealing with this. And so we have options for faculty to look at and train themselves on what to do when a student comes to them who may be experiencing something really hard. And so we hope that any faculty who watch this video may check those resources out and be better informed on what they can do to help a student who may be struggling. And then we just wanted to briefly introduce the CAP staff because they're awesome.
Yeah, and hopefully you'll get to know each of them individually through these videos. So this is Kurt Hero, our director. He's amazing. Janine Peterson, she's like the glue. She's our clinical director. Blaine Edwards, he's our group coordinator. And as you can see, our group program is very extensive and successful. This is Matt Reiser. He's our director of training. We have interns who come from all over the country. We have a very extensive, the psychology intern process is much like the med school process. And so they get matched with us. It's very extensive. He does a ton of work, and we have great interns that you can also, that may be someone that you get matched with for individual counseling or other services that you access. So he gets a lot of the credit for the really great interns that we get here. Christina Johnson, that we sort of already praised. We love her. She's amazing. She does a lot around mindfulness, meditation, and wellness. This is Merrill Jones. He's our outreach coordinator. So he does a lot for reaching out to the different departments on campus and making sure that CAPS's services are represented, and so that students know about the resources available to them. This is Andrea Donovan. She's a clinical social worker, and she does all kinds of incredible things. Lots of people know about her. She was also an advisor. She's doing some poetry therapy work right now, amongst many things. And she also is the peer coordinator. What is her position? I don't know.
I'm blanking on what her official title is, but she's the one who originally came up with the idea for the peer program. She's the one who did all the work getting it set up for us. And she's the one who did so much of the training for each of the peers, and we meet with her weekly. Anytime we're struggling with something like really hard, we're like, I have no idea what to do with this to help the student, we go to her. She's amazing. She helps so much.
Title maybe like go-to human.
Yep.
Facilitator, coordinator, master.
Yep.
And then this is me. I used to have blonde hair. We'll just keep on scrolling. So yeah, if you ever want to see faces, our interns didn't want to do pictures this year. Everybody has different comfort levels around that. So we have Jesse Andrino and Crystal Moon. They're awesome. And then this is Debbie, our front desk administrative assistant. Like I mentioned, Amanda is at a different department on campus right now, but that'll be updated soon. And that's pretty much it. Yeah.
So we hope that this video gave you a good introduction to the resources from CAPS. If you have any questions, feel free to stop by the Health and Wellness Center. You can talk with me or one of the other peers. We all know what the resources are, and we're happy to help. And then please utilize those resources, whether it's the Why Your Wait resources, the toolkit, or if it's actually making that call and getting that request for services so that you can start meeting with the counselors at CAPS. They want to help.
Yes, we do. And a lot of times it's just getting access to resources that can be a huge barrier. So hopefully this will kind of help answer some of those questions. And like we said, we hope to have many more videos that'll clarify and give you access to a little bit more resources and just exposure to some of the awesome, amazing counselors that we have and peers.
All right. Thanks, T-Birds. Go get them.
Thank you. We'll see you again next week. Okay, thank you.
Bye.